like an innovative way to grow your business, you need to think about growing your business with virtual events. In today's episode with Leonard Scheiner, we'll discover how you too can do that. And what's so special about Leonard is that he has worked with numerous Fortune 500 companies. He's the CEO of Geek House, a digital agency based in Los Angeles. The first question I have is, what's the secret to your success? And does it have anything to do with growing your business with virtual events?
Welcome to Awakened Titans podcast with Lily Patrascu. Mind-blowing conversations with influential business titans sharing how you can manifest abundance, love, joy, success through quantum awakening, quantum manifestation, quantum healing, quantum miracles, exponential business growth, and innovative products and services.
What is the secret to my success? Lily, that is such a great question. Thanks for having me on today. I think that the secret to my success would be this: to always have a turnaround mindset. And what is a turnaround mindset? It means that you are always committed to improving, right? Turning around a decision that you might have made that was wrong or that wasn't the best and making it better, or even a good decision that you can make and improve on. It's having that turnaround mindset and not being afraid of being the one who takes the lead and takes charge in making that happen.
Thank you. So how did you start doing virtual events? And tell us a little bit about some of the impact you've already created with virtual events for your business and multiple other businesses.
Yeah, virtual events is really something that came to be commonplace after, the pandemic that we had, and it really took over the event space, right? Because you couldn't be in the same room with people. And so prior to that, living in Los Angeles, I would go to different networking events. And, I think I heard something funny one time that in LA, there's, 1,000 events that you could go to on any given night. And that's probably true. So I would do a lot of network hopping and event hopping and meet people in person. And then when the world made the shift, I was like, well, I'm not still having that same level of interaction, right? And I liked it from a business perspective, but I also liked it just from a pure connection and interest perspective. So when I really made the switch to start doing virtual events, it was because I wanted that way to connect with people, get really good information, and I up-leveled my game. Let's just say that. So when you're networking, you're usually networking with peers, right? Or people that you're in the same room with. But now, doing virtual events, I host them. So I get to choose who are the people that are a great fit for this type of topic, right? So the one that I'm doing now is called the High Performance Founder Summit, right? In the past, we had Unleash Your Brand Master Series. And so I'm hosting these, choosing the speakers that are a great fit for the audience. And throughout this process, I'm able to position myself as a wonderful host, as someone who is knows what they're talking about, is likable, and really get exposure for myself, my face, my brand, but at the same time be delivering value to the audience. So it's really like I'm acting as their shepherd. And I would actually encourage anyone who is thinking about doing some type of events to really look at this method, because it positions you in a way where it is unlikely that you would be talking to these level of people, right? We're looking at experts who are consulting with the US Olympic team. We're looking at people who are 7- and 8-figure earners. We're looking at people who have founded global brands, right? We're looking at authors from, the dummy books, like, such and such for dummies. Okay, we're talking with authors from those type of books. So you would often not be networking with this type of person. So it's a great way to really build your authority as well as your audience.
Thank you. How do you monetize these virtual events? And the reason I ask is because I've run a few virtual events. And I find that unless you're running paid ads or someone is emailing their list, then it's a little bit harder to get that initial traction until your brand is a little bit known. So I wonder about, what is the method? Is it that you run challenges of some sort, and then after the challenge, you make an offer at the end, and then those people get to go into the group where it's basically like a paid opportunity for people to experience these high caliber speakers? Or is there a different model that you use?
So everything that you just mentioned can fit together in some ways. You could do some of it, you could do all of it, or portion of it. So the way that I typically like to do it is I like to serve first, right? We are there to provide value. I don't like a bait and switch of any kind. So when we're making an offer, I want that to be, not really any strings attached. So I offer the summits at zero cost. That way, all the people are able to join and get the value. I also offer a VIP upgrade, right? So it's like a GA, general admission ticket, or you get a VIP. And with the VIP, you get access to the recordings, you get a short one-on-one session with a coach to help on the topic that we're talking about in the summit. You might get a workbook, you might get some other things. I think you mentioned a community, that as well, right? So there's kind of two levels there, and the VIP is monetized, but the general admission is not. And then when people are in there, one thing that I didn't do in my early summits is that I didn't interview myself, which is kind of funny to think about, but realistic and practical. So think about this. You've just had your whole lineup of speakers, right? And you can run them a few different ways. I like to do all pre-recorded, and then they're dripped out over email. It's a much more conscientious way. You could do a live one where people are coming on, but I've always found those to be a little bit challenging with relying on other people to show up at a specific time, and especially when it's coming back on you as the host and the brand and the producer. So the people who are in the audience, they're going to be watching all of these experts, right? And I'm interviewing all of the different experts, asking questions. And then at the end of the series, I interview myself because the topic that we're talking about is something that I'm interested in, right? So I either have an opinion or an expert opinion. And so I interview myself. And at the end of my interview, I offer a free gift, right? So that might be a download, that might be a mini course, that might be another ticket to another like workshop that I'm doing or something like that, right? So I'm pulling them from the summit, from the master series. I'm pulling them into another event, right? Because in the master series, we're not making offers to them. I guess the VIP is an offer, but kind of not really. So we're not making any offers. The hosts are giving out gifts and bonuses and unlocking this and access to that. So I'm really about hooking up the people in the summit, right? Like I said, I'm all about giving that value first. So I build that goodwill. Once we have the people in the summit, now a certain percentage of those are watching my interview. Then a certain percentage of those are going to the next workshop. In that next workshop is where I'll train something, give some secrets, and eventually make an offer. And that's where that's where the monetization comes from. But think about this. We've just taken and given people a whole bunch of value over a period of a few weeks. Then we give them more value in a workshop, right? Where they're implementing, they're getting some micro results. And then I'm asking for them to work with me if that's the right fit for them, right? So it is really natural in the way that you would do it, right? Is that you meet someone, you help them, and then eventually they might hire you. So it's very natural versus I think there's other methods of running summits where, it's money out of the gate and they upsell within it and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it just kind of feels like you didn't get the value, right? You didn't get the loving on first before they're asking you to spend money. So that's how we do it.
Thank you. So you said a few weeks. So the challenge or the summit, is that happening over a few weeks?
It is.
When you say a few weeks, do you mean like an hour a day or an hour a week, or how is it?
Exactly. So we do all pre-recorded. And so we will take those interviews, edit them, package them up. And then each day, the people who have attended are getting an email or two about, excuse me, they're getting an email, one or two a day with an interview from the series. This way, it's digestible, right? We've all been to those like 1 day things before, and you just have to sit there all day because it's like 6 hours or 8 hours, and you don't want to miss anything, and you go to the bathroom and you take it with you, and all of these things. Well, I like to treat the audience a little bit nicer and say, look, here you go. You've got access to this interview for the next 2 days or so, right? So if it works for you to watch it in the morning before you go to work, or in the evening, or while you're in the sauna at the gym, that's up to you, right? We're all entrepreneurs, we're business owners. We've got things that we can't really move on our calendar sometimes. So exactly, you're correct. It happens over a few weeks, and we drip them out via email. That way people can really set their own schedule. But then in the interim, it also lets us build a relationship with this audience, right? We're delivering, we're over delivering, we're being consistent with our word. So it helps to build that know, like, trust, and the integrity factor.
Thank you. How big are these interviews?
Like, how long are they?
Yes.
About 30 minutes or so.
Okay. Now, I think the biggest question is, how do you get people in the first place? Is it through paid ads, or is it through emailing to people's existing email lists?
Yeah, we use a few different methods, but the biggest by far is the speakers and other promotional partners who are mailing their lists to invite people to register for the free summit. Now, you can do paid ads, but you're spending money up front, right? You can do some sponsorships, JV stuff, and that is usually a little bit better because I don't want to wait to have cash coming in from the summits, right? This is a business, it's a marketing activity, and all marketing activities should generate revenue. So that's also why we do the VIP, right? It's the same content, just packaged a little bit differently, and some people see value in that, right? And so we're giving it away to them for free, but if they want that, then they can pay. What that does is it means that for me as the producer for this IP, it means that I'm able to start recouping some of the funds that it takes to produce this, right? Because there's also costs, like hard costs, to produce a show. So yeah, we want to do that quicker rather than later.
Thank you. Do these entrepreneurs that come on to speak, do they get any monetization themselves from this?
They are able to get people from the summit. So that's a benefit for them. The value for the speaker is that they know their people, or I should say, their people know them. But there's so many other little audiences that you haven't tapped into, right? So, like, if we take the idea of like an influencer, right? We think the influencer is really big and they've got 1 million followers. Okay, but what about the idea of micro influencers? We've all heard that, right? And the micro influencers, they might have 20,000 people, but those 20,000 people are like religious, right? It's like they're in a cult almost, right? And they follow that person so closely. So I would actually rather have that micro influencer because it is more niched and they can provide better content as a speaker, as an expert to this audience. So, for example, right, like when I hosted Unleash Your Brand Master Series, I wanted the person who, I didn't want the person who had 1 million people on their list, right? Because it's just talking too broad, it's talking too big. I wanted the person who had a really intimately cultivated, smaller audience. And that person is the one who, they email their people weekly. They've got the relationship. And so when they say, hey, I'm going to be featured on this upcoming summit, you should register. guess what? Their people move. And that's how we really make it all happen.
Thank you. So I still don't understand the monetization model for the speakers.
Mm,
Is it that they don't make money from the VIP upgrades? They don't make money necessarily offering a program, but what they make money with is that people start following them and they start registering on their list. And then they, at some point, will buy something. Is that the idea?
correct. So I don't split any type of commission on the VIP upgrades. Reason being is that it's the same content, we're producing it, and there's costs that are hard that need to be recuperated. Um, on the other end of that, yes, to your question, they are getting people back on their list because during their interview, we want to offer something of value to the audience from that speaker. So that's like their lead magnet, right? So they're offering that. They're getting people back on their list, those who found them relevant, right? It incentivizes everyone to do the best that they can in delivering valuable information. And then they should be nurturing them and taking them on, right? So those are new people in their audience, nurture, cultivate, and then they take them however they choose to take them.
Thank you. So they don't make like a hardcore offer as such. They just do like a lead magnet offer, yeah?
Correct.
Okay, that's very interesting. So how many people would you say you typically get in a virtual event?
It ranges. I've had virtual events where there were 200 people. I had virtual events where on our mailings to them it was, 200,000. So giving a number on that's kind of difficult. But yeah, obviously more is always better.
Thank you. How do you get the attendees who registered to actually turn up and watch? How do you maximize that watch time, that attendance, that engagement?
Yeah, that is a great question. So we want to make sure that we are communicating with them as the host and building the relationship before we're asking them to spend time watching an interview. So once they sign up and they've registered to attend, we want to start building that relationship, right? I'm going to start emailing you, I'm going to start text messaging you, and maybe dropping a few hints here and there, right, of what's to come. I might even take, a few minutes or a few seconds from an interview that's part of the series and say, hey, watch out for this. It's coming up soon. And then drop that really valuable bomb because it incentivizes people to really stay engaged.
Thank you. Are there any particular like marketing tips for the engagement in terms of, let's say, do you give them some sort of call to action within the group? And do you have like some sort of email marketing and SMS marketing or WhatsApp marketing sequence that ensures that they are kind of like staying on track and are reminded, oh, by the way, we have this thing, dripping today, or make sure to engage because otherwise this thing is going to go away in 48 hours, that kind of thing. Is there like a not like a threat, but like an incentive to watch it within a certain time frame as well?
Well, they only have access to the interviews for the general admission. They only have access to the interviews for 2 days. So that is where we get the urgency in that makes sure that they're staying on track. I'm sure some people, go back and they're like, oh no, I can't get that interview. Well, great. Then you need to purchase VIP, right? So there's an incentive there that incentivizes a sale on the front end. It incentivizes them to watch it and stay on track. Yep, all of those things.
Okay, very good. And what would you say are the most effective ways to get them in a way hooked to watching, aside from what you've just mentioned?
Ways to get them hooked. Well, I'm gonna assume that if they registered for it, they're interested, right? And then it's really up to me to make them more thirsty, right? It's kind of like when you're like walking to the restaurant, you can like smell the restaurant from in the parking lot or, a block away, and you're like, oh, that food, I can smell it, right? We want to give that incentive for them to keep walking towards the good smell. And so that's why we'll take little snippets of the content and kind of drop that in as like a teaser. it's also about being consistent, right? So from myself as the host or the producer, I want to make sure that I'm delivering on schedule. So it might be um, like two times a day. One of them's at 8 a.m. and then the other one's at 4 p.m., right? So the next day, I need to also do 8 and 4 p.m., right? We need to keep consistent because for these 2 or 3 weeks that the summit is running, these people are like doing this extracurricular activity, right? It's like now you've got something else. You've got a new group to join and be a part of, right? So people are going to start expecting these things at certain times and then working their day around them. I had one lady who was an attendee and she said, I loved it that you started because I didn't always do the first one at 8 a.m., right? I think I did it at like 11 a.m. or something like that. And she was like, I really love that you did it at 8 a.m. on this past one because it lets me get into the office. And then that interview was the first thing I watched that day. Right. So she booked out her 8 to 9 to watch that interview because I was delivering it consistently at 8. Right. But what if I was delivering it at 6 a.m., 8 a.m., 11 a.m., 1 p.m., like then it's hard for people to stay on track. So consistency is really the key. You can make it whatever you want, right? Maybe it's 6 a.m. and noon, who cares, right? But the point is that you're setting the stage, unintended, and you're keeping the consistency.
Thank you. Are there any particular timings that are better than others in terms of when to run it?
Like times of day or times of year?
Yeah, times of day.
No, I would say it's pretty open based on you and what your audience is going to expect, right? Like if they are, um, like if you're doing something for parents, probably like an evening time would be better, right? Because they're in parent mode, right? I would never send like a parenting email at 8 o'clock in the morning. One, they're in like, I need to get out the door mode. I'm going into work mode. Like it's the wrong time for that audience, right? So there are some like industry or categorical things that we could think about like that. But I've always run them 1 or 2 emails a day. And, I've done them at noon, I've done them at 8 a.m. I haven't really noticed much of a difference there.
Thank you. Now, for example, for me, it would be very easy to get, I don't know, 100 influencers to speak because, it's just very easy for me to do that. The thing I would be worried about is getting enough people. Okay. So let's say if I was a new time entrepreneur trying to do this strategy. Okay. How would you suggest entrepreneurs who are running their very first event, how do they make sure that they keep to their promise? Because, for example, let's say I can get someone who sold, 4 million books, or someone who sold 400 million, whatever. And then how do you make sure actually there's an audience for them when they're there?
So we want to make sure that the speakers that we are having on our lineup have a decent audience themselves. And that could look a lot of different ways. But the benefit of having all speakers all have audiences is that it's statistically impossible for you to have an empty room.
Okay.
It just is.
Is that because there's a requirement for participating in your event that they promote to their list?
That is definitely a requirement. Yeah, it's a collaborative effort. So when we're looking at, what do I get from it? What do you get from it? What does the audience get from it? I really like win-win-wins. And so the audience's huge win is that they're getting all this information for free, right? They're getting to speak with people, or not speak with, but hear from people who don't even do this type of thing sometimes, right? And so that's the huge value to the audience. The huge value to the win for the speakers is that when they're part of the lineup, they're getting promoted to the entire list of attendees, right? Not just their people that signed up, but everyone else's too. And we're going to think that, like when we did the high performance founder summit, right? Like we've got someone who is really good at making decisions, right? They're a high performance decision maker. And then we have someone talking about sleep and how do you get high performance sleep, right? Like how do you get the best sleep possible? Okay, so do we think that those are competitors, a sleep, like an optimal sleep person and a decision making person? No, they're very different, right? Those are different problems that they solve. But if I want to get high performance sleep and I'm that kind of person, would I also be interested in high performance decisions or high performance diets or high performance morning routines? Yeah, I would. So the collaboration and the sharing of the audiences is first and foremost providing value to the audiences, right? Because if I'm the expert sleep doctor, then my people might want to know about how to make good decisions. And so I'm going to share that person, right, through the summit model, but that person is going to be shared with my people. And that's great because now I'm serving my people at a higher level, referring someone who solves a different problem, who's not a competitor, but the audiences are alike, right? And we know that birds of a feather flock together. So we want to combine all of those, as I mentioned before, like the micro influencer audiences. I want to combine all of those so that when we look at it, those are all the same kind of people that all the speakers can, take turns at applying their message to.
Thank you. How do you make sure that out of the, let's say, 1,000 attendees, how do you make sure that a large number of them attend your mini workshop that follows up this summit?
It's all about packaging it and pitching it in the right way. So when I am doing my interview of myself or that part of it, I'm doing it constructed in such a way that really is aimed at them taking the next step, right? It's a training, it's a talk, it's a sales conversation. And that is first and foremost, like we want to be driving people to take the sale or the action, right? For them, the sale or the action is going to that next workshop. So again, it's teasing value, it's packaging it in the right way, and just incentivizing them to take that next step.
Thank you. So they don't buy your next workshop. It's free, right?
I prefer to do it that way. Yes.
Okay. And then how do you make sure that they don't, that the churn rate isn't high when it comes to like you kind of starting your offer? Because for example, when you're in a room, let's say in a physical room, and you're already there, right? Even if you're not interested, you might end up listening to someone that you're not really interested in. And towards the end of it, you might not really even listen. But the speaker is making such a crazy offer. You're thinking you're stupid if you don't take it, right? But in an online environment, it's so much easier to be like, okay, I'm going to cook dinner instead of listening to Leonard. So I wonder how you kind of make sure that you kind of give them enough value, I guess, or how do you like hook them in to make sure they do listen to most of your talk and a large percentage of them at least listen to you?
Well, that kind of comes back to, the like architecting your talk, right? Architecting what you're saying. What we don't want to do is show up with half lighting on our face and only seeing the top half of our head in the webinar screen and there's typos on our slides and all these things that we've seen done, right? I've seen it, you've seen it, we've all seen the train wrecks, right? That's obviously not what we want to do. But if you are building the relationship over a few weeks, you're leading with value. And I look at sales as not specifically sales, right? Because there's something in my head. I have a belief, right? And we all kind of have the belief that sales is sleazy. And that doesn't put us in a good vibe, right? So I don't look at sales as sales. I look at sales as service. If we can serve this person, fantastic, let's serve them. Yes, there's an investment. Yes, there's a cost to it, right? The world isn't free. But at the end of the day, can we serve them? And if the answer is yes, then we'll talk about the next step. So the way that I make sure that they're converting or that they're sticking around is one, being engaging, right? Having a relationship with them and dropping information that is valuable where they don't want to tune out, right? We've all been in those conversations, even with close friends, where we like start daydreaming because they're telling us something that is not interesting, right? We might even love the person, right? We might have married the person, but they're telling us something and we're like, I don't care. And we're in our own head, right? But we've all been passing a conversation and heard a few words. And then we were like, wait a minute, what's that about? I want to know more about that, right? And maybe we're just nosy or maybe we're interested, but our attention has been caught, right? So we live in an attention economy. So part of the way of keeping people around is dropping enough bombs of value that keeps their attention, right? I don't want you going and cooking dinner because I just gave something tremendously valuable, right? If you're going to go to the bathroom, go quick and come back, right? So maybe, just maybe, if we're doing our job right in the presentation that we're doing, we don't have to worry about them popping out of the room.
Thank you. Tell us where entrepreneurs can find you.
Well, I'll give two locations. So if you want to take a look at the agency, we are online at gogeekhouse.com. That's go, geek, Geek, house, we spell a little differently, Haus, so gogeekhouse.com. And I'll also share that if you are interested in positioning yourself as a leader, as an authority figure, then one of the easiest ways that you are able to do that is by getting on podcasts. And so I do a semi-regular training called the Podcast Guest Intensive, where I teach you how to do just that, where you can go from, wait a minute, I can be on a podcast today, all the way through actually showing up on a show just like this with me and Lily. So what that is you're looking at your magnetic media bio, you're looking at how we pitch, and I give you templates for that. We're looking at opportunities that already exist where the host or the producer wants you to be the guest on their show. So again, if you want to register for that, I offer it for free. It is podcastguestintensive.com. And why not do it with a friend? You bring a friend along. If we're buddies in a system, we're more likely to actually do it and be accountable, right? Because we've got someone else there who's going for it as well. So tell a friend, and then they can register at podcastguestintensive.com, and we'll see you both there.
Follow us for more interviews with world's most influential business titans, providing you with the insights to awaken to your full potential, so you can get paid to be yourself, find true happiness, and manifest anything you desire.